The beginning. It was a summer day in 1978. I was sitting in my parents' kitchen in New Hyde Park, Long Island, when I spotted my neighbor Johnny La Lima coming up the back ramp to the house. We had the ramp for my older brother Michael, my only sibling, who was born with spina bifida and used a wheelchair. Johnny knocked on the back glass, and my mom told him to come in. Johnny stepped into our little eat-in kitchen and looked at me. Here's an application to the New York City Fire Department. Take this test. It's a great job. You won't get rich, but it'll put a roof over your head and food on your table. I was only 18, and I had no plans for my future, so I took the application from Johnny and thanked him. I knew nothing about the fire department, except what I saw on TV at 6 p.m. on Eyewitness News. The only fireman I ever knew was Johnny. Little did I know, this would turn out to be the biggest and best career move of my life. At the time, I was in and out of shitty paying jobs. I worked in a meat factory scraping hangar room floors for $2.75 an hour. It was a really cold, suck-ass job. After that, I went to work in a plastics factory making Othello chips and colored beads. Unemployment had sent me to Stonewell Plastics in Mineola, Long Island for the job interview. The manager was a funny-looking little Mexican guy with a pencil mustache. He started the interview by asking my name and age. I told him my name was Tony and I had just turned 18. Very good, he said. Let me ask you, were you born here? No, I replied. I was born in New Jersey. With that, he started to laugh uncontrollably and waved his hand in the air, saying, "You will do, you will do." Needless to say, the job sucked, and I was the only English-speaking worker in the place. Was I born here? Ha ha, funny. The day finally came for me to take the written test for the New York City Fire Department. It was a Friday afternoon, and my good friend Mac, who was also taking the test, picked me up in his dad's Chevy Caprice. We had to go to a high school in Queens, PS something. I forgot the number, and when we arrived, we were told what classroom to report to. Mac and I had the same room. There were 100 or more guys looking around for the classroom. The monitor informed us to leave 2 desks between each applicant. The test was handed out, and the clock started. I had 3 number 2 pencils, and I was ready. The test was mostly multiple choice questions. Pretty easy stuff. When I felt that I had correctly answered all the 3rd grade level questions, I turned my test in to the monitor. She looked it over to make sure I had my name and correct applicant number. As I looked back over the classroom for Mac, I saw some guys were still taking the test. Mac looked up and nodded at me. The monitor told me I could leave. As I walked out of the room, I started worrying. Did I rush this test? Oh, shit. Well, it is what it is. I waited out in the parking lot for Mac. When he came up to the car, he had a big grin on his face. How'd you do? I asked. Mac laughed. A fucking retard test. We both had a good laugh as we got back into the car and headed home. A year went by before I heard back from the fire department. I had started working with my dad in the printing union, Local 1 Amalgamated Lithographers of America. Some of my best memories of working with my dad. We worked in a shop called Colorcraft, located on Spring and Varick down in Greenwich Village. In the middle of May 1979, I received a registered letter informing me that the physical test would be on June 15th at the Armory in East New York. The physical test is where the herd gets thinned out. I had taken some classes the previous summer to help me pass this test and hopefully get a higher mark. Over 40,000 applicants took the New York City Fire Department test. The hiring list usually lasts around 2 years, and New York City hires about 2,500 people off that list, which means you had to score 98 or better on the written portion and as high as you can on the physical test. My dad drove me to East New York in our Buick Regal. It was a scary-looking part of town with this bigger-than-life enormous brick structure, like something out of an old English factory movie. My dad found a spot to park the nicest car he had ever owned. He gave me the keys and told me to take the car home. He was going to make a run for the subway. My dad was no stranger to New York City. He and my mom both grew up in East Harlem. I was still a little worried about him getting home safe and that the Buick with the very cool spoke rims that I bought for him on his birthday would still be there when I got out of the test. As I entered this old, dusty, leaking building, I was taken back by the size of the interior. The main area where the test was taking place was the size of a football field. I signed in and there were about 100 applicants there. I was told to report to Mrs. Lane, a friendly, middle-aged woman. She was assigned to take a group of 20 applicants through the maze of 8 different stations. Before we started, Mrs. Lane informed us if you need to use the bathroom, do it now, because once we start, there is no stopping. A few of us took off for the head, which we got to by walking down a dark tunnel with old wooden boards on the floor. It was like a creek running through the building. Finally, we came out of this fun house-like tunnel and realized the armory basement was underwater. As I looked around at the colossal restroom, I saw 100 toilets with just a small divider between them and a long stone trough for dozens to pee in. There were long metal sinks to wash your hands. This place was mind-blowing. I made my way back to the tunnel to where my group was stationed. Mrs. Lane told us our first challenge was a 1-mile run. I figured I got this. I was a wrestler in high school and had great endurance. I was only 19 years old. I was wearing my white guinea tee and my red Adidas basketball shorts, which compared to today's shorts were pretty short. I had on my mid-leg white basketball socks and my faded blue high-top Chucks on. Let's do this. There was a 1/4-mile track and you had to make 4 laps around as fast as you could. They lined up 10 applicants on each side of the track. The starter shot his pistol and off we went. I planned to sprint this mile, and I was leading my group. Being 19 sure helped. Some applicants were at least 10 years older and out of shape. I broke for the finish line all out and came in first in my group and second best out of the 20 applicants. The guy who came in first was also named Bonfiglio. How cool is that, I thought to myself. Next, we headed over to the dummy carry. I had practiced this at home by climbing 2 flights of stairs, turning around, and coming back down the stairs carrying 60 pounds of weights. When my turn came, I threw the 80-pound dummy over my shoulder, and off I went. I made great time. There were quite a few applicants who had trouble with this one. I was feeling really good about this test so far. Next, Miss Lane brought us over to the chin-up bar. She explained how it would be scored. First, you start up on the bar with your arms straight down, with the bar across your waist. Then you'll be timed on how long you can hang on the bar before your arms are fully extended. Once your arms are extended, you're done, and your time is recorded. So, like an idiot, I volunteered to go first. There was a ladder to stand on. Once you're on the bar and ready, you nod to the timekeeper, and the challenge begins. Slowly, I started to drop, little by little. I was hanging halfway down. My arms were shaking, until finally my arms locked fully extended. I let go of the bar and got my time. Not bad, the girl timing me said. I gave her a wink and a thumbs up. Now I watched as other applicants took their turns. One by one, they all hung on the bar long after their arms were locked. Some guys were even swinging. Oh no, I thought. Why the hell did I go first? Things were starting to turn on me. Shit. We made our way over to the next obstacle, the big bad 8-foot wall. This was the one we all heard about. It's a score killer. If you don't make it, your chance of getting hired pretty much dies there. As I waited for my turn, I tried to move to the back of the line, and some clown in the line yelled, "Yo, Travolta, where you going? You don't like the front of the line no more?" A few others laughed as I made my way into the line. I watched the first 10 applicants go ahead of me. 7 made it over, 3 not so lucky. I felt for them, but it was what it is. It's a test to get the best. When my turn came, my heart was beating fast. I stared down the runway and I took off like Jackie Robinson stealing home plate. I had about 25 feet of runway before I reached the monster wall. I leapt for the wall top and got my foot up at least halfway. This is how we practice in class. Bam, I got it. With everything I had in me, I pulled myself up and over the wall. Okay, I started feeling a little better. Things are looking up for me. Now let's ace this balance beam. The ledge walk, as it was referred to, is a balance beam next to a wall about 30 feet long. The objective is to get to the end, touch a red line, make a turn, and scramble back as fast as you can. Sounds pretty easy, except you need to put on full gear, a turnout coat, hip boots, and a Scott pack on your back. I'm not crazy about heights, but it was my turn. I put on my boots, the coat, and then the mask. I stepped up onto the balance beam and put my face to the wall, my arms extended on each side like I was hugging the wall. I kept thinking, why would I have to walk a ledge? Is this job that crazy that I'd be walking on some building ledge? Off I went. Luckily, the ledge was only 2 feet off the ground. I slid across the wall all the way down to the mark, hit it, made my turn, and headed back to the finish line, making great time. I got to the finish line. The woman scoring told me I didn't touch the line on the other side. Are you fucking kidding me? I turned and made another dash, my face rubbing against the wood wall. I got to the end, stepped on the marker again, and raced back to no avail. The clock ran out. Holy shit, I just got a 0. I can't believe it. This sucks, all for nothing. I knew I touched the line. The scorer wasn't even down by the mark. How the hell did she see that? I sucked it up with only one more test to go. We worked our way over to where a young, nice-looking woman was waiting. As we lined up in front of her, she explained how this test worked. She held out a dynometer, a contraption that looked like one of those grip exercisers, only this one had a gauge attached to it to measure grip strength. You had 2 shots to get the highest score, so squeeze it as hard as you can. I was standing third in line, checking out the 2 guys in front of me who were in good shape, and they each squeezed a 75. That was a really good score, she said, and then it was my turn. As I was still pissed off over the ledge walk as the instructor handed me the gripper, I held it with my right hand as I looked at her face and squeezed with all my might. Her eyes widened. Wow, she said, 100. I've never seen one yet. That's great. Do you want a second try? I think I'll pass on that, I said. I couldn't do any better. Somebody up there was watching over me, or the machine must have malfunctioned and given me 100. Wow, what a day. As it came to an end, we signed our checkout sheet and said our half-assed goodbyes. It was Friday, and still not dark. I made it out of the armory and tried to figure out where I parked that afternoon. The building was so big it had exits on at least 3 blocks. I saw a corner that looked familiar to me, and I headed in that direction. As I came up on the corner, I saw the blue Buick still there with the tires and all. I was totally relieved. I looked for the car keys. I started hitting all my pockets, but they weren't in the first 3. Now I was getting nervous. I hit the last pocket, and then I felt the key. Beautiful. I jumped in and started the car. So far, so good. How the hell do I get out of this shithole? We, of course, had no Google Maps in '79. So first things first, I looked for the joint hidden in my Adidas bag. I fired it up and again thought, wow, what a day. I started to relax a little as I looked for some kind of highway sign. A few more hits of the joint and there it was, the sign for the Grand Central Parkway. I jumped on the parkway and headed home. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw my dad looking at me through the back door. I was glad to see he had made it home safely on the subway. As I walked in, my parents were anxious to hear how it went. I just shrugged my shoulders. Not bad. Could have been better, I told them. I'm really hungry. Sit down, Anthony. I got some macaroni and meatballs, my mom said. Yum. As I sat eating, I thought about how I had just gone through this tough firefighter test, and I was really beat, not even sure if I would pass.